Hi all. Pastor Giveback here. I want to open up about some things. I won't reveal the real names of some of the people to protect their privacy, but I want to share my story. By the way, this isn't Pastor Giveback's story. This really happened. Have you ever been silenced by one of your pastors at your church? I have. When I used to go to one church, they were very against Joel Osteen, and because they were like that, I was like that too. However, when my dad got cancer, I read where Joel's mom had been healed of a cancer far worse than my dad's, and that is what gave me faith God was going to heal my dad. Praise God. My dad has been cancer-free for years. Looking back, I realize it is a mistake to call someone a false prophet if you don't know them. I see people calling out Joel Osteen all the time, but they never invite him to share his side of the story. It isn't just with Joel Osteen. I see many famous Christians being called out without being given a chance to explain themselves. I see people being unfair to Andy Stanley and Bill Johnson all the time. Anyway, God also did a working miracle in me and saved me from suicidal depression multiple times. The reason I was so depressed is because my singleness used to bother me so much that I really believed that if I wasn't married, then my life had no meaning. Others tried to help, but a lot of times their help just made matters worse, because my married Christian friends would say things like, "You don't need a spouse because Jesus is enough." Not to sound blasphemous, but I had to bite my tongue, because every time a married Christian friend would say that, I wanted to shout back and say, "Do you worship God for nothing? Has he not given you a spouse? I guess he loves you more than he loves me, because I hate being single to the point where I want to die, and yet it's easy for you to worship God because he has given you a spouse. If God were really enough for you, then you would have stayed single, so back off." That's what I felt like saying. However, when a single friend talked to me about this, it really helped me out, because she said to pray to God to help my heart get right with him, and in time being single didn't bother me as much. In time, God saved me from suicidal depression. I will say that for other singles secretly thinking suicidal thoughts, because they are not married, one of the worst things married Christians can say to them is that Jesus should be enough. While what they are saying is technically true, single Christians are going to look at married Christians and say, "Yes, but you are married, so is Christ really enough for you?" Could you honestly say the same thing if you weren't married? I remember having this dream about it one time, and this was said: God isn't trying to keep your spouse from you. Listen, for marriage, two hearts need to mature, the husbands and the wives. Sometimes God will delay the marriage opportunity because the husband may be ready, but the wife isn't, or vice versa. God just wants you to be with a godly person, because if you look for just anybody, then eventually your heart will turn away from God. I remember I was so thankful to a church that helped me get over suicidal depression, and I was bragging about that church, but I put my foot in my mouth saying that I believed in the non-tithing theory at a pro-tithing church, and instead of the pastor celebrating with me that God had saved my life and ignoring the part about me being a non-tither, he asked me to stop talking because someone at the church had told him about what I said, and the only thing he knew about it was that I didn't believe in tithing. It's not all the pastor's fault, but I left that church because why should I stay at a church that cares more about making money than they care about a testimony of someone who was set free of suicidal depression? I'm sad to say there are a lot of pastors that should not be pastors. Anyway, what helped save me from suicidal depression before is just knowing that God needs me and loves me, and seeing prophetic art, and knowing how Joseph was unfairly sold into slavery and then later imprisoned for a crime he didn't even commit, and then later God made him second in command of all of Egypt. Hearing testimonies of how God saved others from suicidal depression helped me. I'm still single, by the way, but that's okay. Having a spouse doesn't mean as much to me as it once did. If you struggle with depression, don't be afraid to ask for help. Also, if you are married and have a single Christian friend that is struggling with the same thing I was struggling with, then let them talk to other singles, because with all due respect, when your go-to answer is Jesus should be enough, all that does is shame us and makes things worse. Also, churches, please have more males opening up about how they struggle with singleness. I am a guy and will hear all the time about how women struggle with this. You have created an open door for women in ministry who are single to open up about their struggles. But most male pastors are married, and I hardly hear from any single male pastor, so if more single guys in ministry would open up, or even if they are not pastors, because I am not one yet, then that would really help others out, because now you are giving us someone to relate to. That's my testimony.